Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your boy, fella DJ Ra, presenting you with some of the lovely creatures in my little rendition of the new game Prehistoric Kingdom. So, for those of you who don't know, Prehistoric Kingdom is basically, I hate to put it this way because I hate to generalize things like this, but Jurassic Park esque, kind of zoo tycoonish simulator game. If Jurassic Park actually had scientifically accurate dinosaurs based on what we believe. So, anyway, I just wanted to give a little bit of a rundown on some of the creatures we have here. I figure we start from the Triassic and work our way up to the Cretaceous. And of course, what better dinosaur to bring into the Triassic, than the tall yet fierce Coelophysis. And let's start with this little guy, Anador.
Coelophysis is without a doubt the most iconic dinosaur of the Triassic period. It was named all the way back in 1889, making the genus well over 100 years old. That's nothing compared to the actual age of the animal, of course. The most recent specimens of Coelophysis are roughly 200 million years old.
They may not have been that big, but these guys were the precursors of some of your favorite creatures from the movies. Moving on to the Skeletosaurs.
It's always a pleasure to run into a fellow Brit so far away from home. Meet Solidosaurus, an early armoured dinosaur from England and Ireland. Remarkably, paleontologists have found specimens of every bone in the skeleton of Solidosaurus. An impressive feat, considering that many dinosaurs are only known from partial or even fragmentary skeletons.
This is one of our bulls. And there really isn't too much sexual dimorphism with this bunch. Now let's move on to our final Triassic dinosaur, at least at the moment. One that many of you may think you know from the Jurassic Park movies, Dilophosaurus.
Dilophosaurus is such a gorgeous creature. With its magnificent double crest and that noticeable notch in its jaw, it's one of the most recognizable predators to ever live. I'll never understand the guests who think it isn't cool enough as it is. Fancy frills and baubles would only take away from such a beautiful but deadly creature.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Mr. Marvin. Not too much sexual dimorphism with this group either. They may not have had an impressive neck frill or the ability to spit venom, but personally, I think the actual animal is far more impressive. But then again, what do I know? Okay, so from the Triassic, we move onward to the Jurassic. We might as well start with the big boys. Or girl in this case. A Brachiosaurus cow.
You can't get a much more classic dinosaur than Brachiosaurus. Brachiosaurus is a sauropod, a type of herbivorous dinosaur with a tiny head at the end of a long neck. The largest animals to ever walk on land were sauropods, but not all of them were so gargantuan. For instance, Europasaurus grew just over 6 meters long, which, to be fair, is still very large.
Sorry, my metric system skills are failing me right now. Otherwise, I'd be able to tell you how many feet that was. So we'll move on to our second largest resident in this pin, Carnosaurus.
There it is! Carnosaurus, the star of the Morrison Formation. Fossils of Carnosaurus are some of the most common remains found in the Morrison. Luckily for us, that means we have a wealth of information to work with, including what it ate and even how it laid its eggs.
Despite their large size, sauropods like this Bullcomorosaurus weren't really all that bright. But they didn't really need big brains to go and hunt what they needed to eat. On the smaller end of the scale are these swift little plant eaters called Dryosaurus. Where's he go? We got a young buck over here, just happily grazing. I can't wait till we update the game a little more so we can get some herding behaviors. I'd love to capture some of that for you guys. From gentle plant eaters to cunning carnivores. Next up, we've got a pair of Torvosaurus here. One of the few species of dinosaurs that could have been found globally. I couldn't really tell you whether they hunted together or not, but hopefully having two Torvosaurs in the same pen won't cause any real problems later on.
Ah yes, the Torvosaurus, an apex predator of the Jurassic. Its sleek profile made it a formidable foe for even the biggest of prey items. If you want my advice, it's best observed from a safe distance.
I love the patterning on these guys. And most of the time you can actually get separate skins for them too. Though it varies depending on subspecies. Now, for the real big boys of the early Cretaceous. And not many of them come much bigger than Argentinosaurus. Take a look at this. There we go. Let's take a look at this enormous bull we've got over here.
Now, I've seen skeletons of Argentinosaurus before, but nothing can prepare you for the sheer immensity of this dinosaur in the flesh. These titanic sauropods, fittingly called titanosaurs, grow rapidly. Once they reach a certain size, they're virtually untouchable and have nothing to fear from any apex predators. Hungry guests, though. Let's hope we don't find out.
Right now, my big question is, are they going to eventually introduce its top predator? The dreaded Mapusaurus, a cousin of the more famous Giganotosaurus. Sorry folks, as you can imagine, these pins get dirty real quickly. So let me just take care of this for a second. We do not need these animals going around in their own dung. There we go. let's glide across over here. Aha! Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Acrocanthosaurus. In terms of size, it was actually the precursor to T-Rex in North America.
Acrocanthosaurus, the high-spined lizard. An apex predator, and a good one at that. The tall neural spines running down its back are what create that beautiful scenic silhouette, although their function remains a bit of a mystery to us. I'd love to go to get a closer look at this particular specimen, but I think I'll stay this side of the fence.
That makes two of us. Luckily for us, with them being so big, it probably wouldn't take too much to outrun one. Still, I wouldn't hate to be the lucky sod who happens to run into one in the wild. Thank you, but no thank you. That's more than enough adrenaline to last me a lifetime. There are about 4 acros in this pen, by the way. 2 males and 2 females. Okay. Oops. Sorry, this place is absolutely massive. Sometimes I lose track of where I'm going. Now, we go from some of the biggest to some of the smallest.
This is an Archaeopteryx. Its fossil was one of the most important scientific discoveries ever made. Its name means ancient wing, not to be confused with the similarly named Paleozoic tree Archaeopteris, which means ancient fern. The distinction, of course, is quite important.
So, in this enclosure, we have 4 Archaeopteryx. 2 drakes and 2 hens. You've got one of its cousins. Enter
This
Microraptor.
is one of my personal favorites, the Microraptor. Those tufts on its hind legs are not stylish trousers, they're actually flight feathers. With 4 wings full of delicate but vital flight feathers, these creatures have to be careful not to drag them on the ground and cause permanent damage.
Another fun little fact about Microraptor is that when it was originally discovered, scientists had no idea how the wings on its legs worked. At first, we thought it might have been able to hold its hind legs out and act as kind of like a biplane. But now we see that the feathers on the hind legs may have enabled it to help steer, much like its tail. At first, it was thought they could only glide, but now we know that they could actually use power flight and fly quite a distance, which comes in really useful in ancient forests teeming with predators. And now we go on to another significant dino find, Psittacosaurus.
Now this little fella is a Psittacosaurus. Thanks to a number of recent findings, we were able to restore this creature to a high degree of genetic accuracy, right down to the quills and coloration in some of its species.
Psittacosaurus is actually one of the earliest forms of a ceratopsid. So, dinosaurs like Protoceratops, Pachyrhinosaurus, and Triceratops himself all came from little creatures just like this guy. Moving on. We've got my little iguanodon herd. For anyone who remembers the Disney movie Dinosaur, this is the true Aladar.
Iguanodon, one of the first dinosaurs to be formally named. This creature's restorations weren't always perfect, though. See those thumb spikes? They were once thought to be nasal horns, sort of like an iguana's. Very wrong, of course, but A+ for name inspiration.
Indeed. The name iguanodon actually translates to iguana tooth. Moving on. Now, I think before we go over here, there's another little creature I should show you.
Protoceratops. This animal is one of the smaller species of ceratopsians, living alongside deadly neighbours like the velociraptor. One famous fossil preserves a Protoceratops and a velociraptor locked in battle. I know that look in your eyes. I don't care if it's in the name of science. Don't put the two species together. We don't need to deal with another ethics violation.
Another ethics violation. Yeah, because that's totally not foreboding or anything. But in any case, yes, Protoceratops is another early ceratopsid. Oh. I was about to say, maybe it's best we leave this tired old bull alone. But, nope. Another little interesting fact about Protoceratops is, despite their menacing behavior, they're actually about the size of sheep, and just as docile. Unless, of course, heaven forbid, one bull enter another's harem. Now let's check out one of Mongolia's larger animals. One that most scientists had absolutely no idea how to work out until fairly recently. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the majesty that is Dinochirus, known to many a paleo nerd as the quote-unquote danger duck.
Now this is an interesting fellow. This dinosaur is called Dinochirus, a name meaning horrible hand. Although it may look intimidating, this animal's diet primarily consisted of fish and plants. A real connoisseur, don't you think?
The way it got that name was that when this creature was originally discovered, all they could find were its arms. And at first, we thought it was a form of Therizinosaur, another type of long-fingered herbivorous theropod. But after more of the animal was discovered, it turned out to be one of the craziest looking creatures we've ever seen. How many other animals do you know with a duck-like bill and a camel-like hump on its back? Okay, we'll just leave this group to themselves. And now we move on to creatures from the mid-Jurassic. In this pen, I have a mixed herd of Ceratosaurus, Lambeosaurus, and Parasaurolophus, all of which would have inhabited American grasslands at the same time around the mid-Cretaceous. I think we'll start with the Lambeosaurus.
Lambeosaurus, a crested hadrosaur from the late Cretaceous. Like others of its kind, it uses its unique hatchet-shaped crest as a sort of resonating chamber. Though not essential, it's also great at giving a thumbs up.
And look at the coloring on this buck. Très impressive, no? Each hadrosaur has a different head crest, which may have allowed animals to communicate with each other and tell each other apart. Let's have a look at this Perry buck.
Now that, my friend, is a beautiful dinosaur. Almost like a musical instrument, Parasaurolophus used their crest for long-distance communication. There's been simulations in the past that tried to reconstruct how they could have sounded, but nothing quite compares to the real thing.
Indeed. And last but not least, we've got Styracosaurus. My Styracosaurus herd consists of one bull and about 4 cows, which is probably how it would have been in real life. Each bull would have probably been in control of a harem of a handful of cows.
With a head like that, we must be looking at Styracosaurus. The purpose of these gorgeous frills has long vexed paleontologists. Were they primarily for display, temperature regulation, or neck protection? Now that we have one in the flesh, hopefully we can solve this mystery once and for all.
I'm really not sure what would happen if you put 2 bulls in the same pen, and I don't think I want to. Well, that's about it for this enclosure. Now let's move on to some creatures from the Arctic, a place where many of you may never have expected to see dinosaurs. Oh, there we go. Let's take a look at this Edmontosaur buck.
Found all over western North America, Edmontosaurus is the textbook definition of a hadrosaur. They're one of the most well-studied animals in the fossil record, providing us with a wealth of insight into how they ate, socialized, and survived.
For a time, they were actually the largest duck-billed dinosaurs, or hadrosaurs, in North America. Unfortunately, that made them a good prey choice for other predators, like Nanosaurus and its much larger cousin, Tyrannosaurus. Now, I think we've gotten our glimpse of Edmontosaurus. Let's take a look at these Pachyrhinosaurus, and we'll start with this bull.
Ah, a Pachyrhinosaurus. There are 3 species contained within the genus Pachyrhinosaurus, each with their own unique facial characteristics. While we don't know the primary purpose of these features, we can assume that the differences help an individual recognize members of its own species and help males impress the ladies.
The name Pachyrhinosaurus actually translates to thick-nosed lizard, because unlike other ceratopsids, instead of having a massive horn, It had a huge lump of bone on its face called a boss, which bulls may have used to intimidate each other and headbutt each other to attract potential mates. Now we're finally getting into the nitty-gritty with some of the most popular members of the dinosaur clan. First off is everyone's favorite three-horned face, Triceratops. Like the Styracosaurs, this herd consists of 1 bull and 4 cows. And here's our bull now.
Triceratops, one of the most recognizable and largest dinosaurs of its kind. Just think, this species was completely eradicated in a mass extinction that killed 3/4 of the species on Earth. And 66 million years later, it has the chance to walk the Earth once again. We're witnessing something truly remarkable.
See you later, big guy. Hopefully one of these days it'll update and we'll have calves. And last but not least, we have the original tyrant lizard king themselves. Or should I say king and queen? Tyrannosaurus.
There it is, the one and only king of the tyrant lizards. Tyrannosaurus is as big as the movies, and yet somehow even scarier. T-Rex has the most powerful bite force of any land animal on the planet. And if those massive jaws weren't threatening enough, you know it could swallow you and me both in one go. This is a creature of pure instinct, so let's hope it doesn't try to take back its kingdom anytime soon.
And yet, despite that, you probably would have been able to outrun a full-grown male. Their chicks, on the other hand, you may not be so lucky. Gotta get that good scratch in, eh, bud? Okay, I think we'll just leave there to go to their own devices. Sleep well. And that's just about every last dinosaur I have so far. But as the game continues to update, rest assured I will be adding more into the mix. So until then, thank you for joining me, and please check me out on my website for my merchandise at www.djtproductionsllc.com. Again, that's djtproductionsllc.com. Thanks, guys.